Hi everybody. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about intensity in our movement, in our poses, in our practice of yoga, and even just sort of in general when we are doing those little stretches in between. Maybe we're sitting at our desk and we just kind of want to move our back or move our shoulders. And this is a concept that I talk a lot about in my classes, in particular when I'm moving into those practices. Well, actually all of my classes, even my more intense asana-based classes, all of my classes really, there's points where we don't actually have to feel anything. And I think that's really beneficial for our body. A lot of us grew up, I know I did, in that sort of generation of no pain, no gain. I remember those Garfield comics, no pain, no gain, and that we had to really push ourselves into anything to be successful physically. And yes, of course, that rule is true for lots of things. But when we come into yoga, in particular, there's so many beautiful opportunities where we can just pause and create softer movements, micro movements in our body where there's stuff going on, but we're not necessarily moving to that point of 100% intensity or 125% intensity. Look, if you're in a high impact cardio based class, yeah, that's what you're going for. That's kind of the point of being there. And even in our more intense asana-based practices or power yoga type practices, yeah, we are going to spend a lot of time moving into intensity. However, I think that whenever we are practicing yoga, we need to have moments where we just pause and step back, where we can breathe. And even if it's just in a slow transition, even if it's inside of a pose, pausing to reflect and just noticing how much intensity we're putting in. Sometimes I'll see my students in their yoga postures and their faces just like they're holding everything. But if we actually go into yoga philosophy from the sutras, one of the lines that talks about asana is that it should be steady and comfortable. And that essentially means that our breath needs to flow easily. So just stepping back a little bit about how to create a little bit of movement in our body where we aren't really pushing to that end to end of intensity, but just finding some spot in the middle. And it can be so simple even with our shoulders. So even just a little up and down movement. It doesn't have to be this shrug up to the ears and then press down. But what if we just kind of went up and down a few times right in that center spot where we were looking to find that space where we didn't really feel anything? This is actually really beautiful for our body because it's building some of that yin energy that we often are really craving because our world is so yang and busy. So even sitting at our desk in between emails or in between projects that we're working on, just pause. And sure, we can do all these great poses and stretches where we're feeling lots. But what if we also just took a moment and just kind of moved a little bit where we weren't feeling a lot? And up and down in the shoulders. Or maybe just a little bit with our head. So not going to that point where we're like, oh, there I feel it. But just kind of holding back from that spot. And then the shoulders. Think about that when you move into some of your yoga postures. So if we're in something like a warrior two, and we're holding the pose, and we're holding it so hard, you can even hear it in my voice and see it in my face, and I'm just like, I'm here. How is that really allowing my yoga practice to help me relax? So instead, soften the shoulders a little bit. Maybe move the hips a little bit. Maybe even play a little bit with the knee. And then settle into that spot where we feel everything strengthen on the inside, but there's a beautiful softness on the outside. You know, one of the beautiful things I love about yoga, and I've been practicing yoga poses for actually 18 years. This month is when I first started to go into the world of yoga movements. And still, after all these years, I must have done, honestly, like, I don't even know, tens and thousands of Warrior One. I practice Warrior One almost every single day, and sometimes up to 10 to 12 times a day. So how is it that we can continue to practice yoga all the time and still fall in love with it, right? And still it feels different in our body each time we practice. So it's another concept to play around with and just see how it makes us feel both inside and out and at the end of our practice. I hope that helped a little bit, some different suggestions for you. Try it out. I'd love to hear your comments. Namaste.